Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's my pleasure to chair this session. My name is Morgado. So this is the first session of all the wonderful sessions that we will have on iLRN2023. So welcome again. And it's my pleasure to introduce the first presentation. The title is Immersive Learning Research from the perspective of its researchers and practitioners, questionnaire validation and evaluation results from a survey on a conceptual framework for the field. So we welcome Professor Denise and Professor Leonel for this presentation. So the floor is yours. Please remember that you have 15 minutes for your presentation and then 5 minutes for questions from the audience. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I just like to thank everybody for coming. Also, I kind of feel if I come across defensive, I kind of feel a little bit like I'm being questioned by like the FBI or secret police with the light from the projector in my eyes. So it's kind of exciting. Yeah, I'll probably just step to this side. You're right. That's a good idea. But do you want to give a little background?
Oh yeah. So guys, let me just tell you what we are getting today. So 3 years ago at iLRN, we were really annoyed that this entire field was very hard to compare anything that was being done because people use different meanings, different concepts, approaches. And so any attempt at comparison, discussion, control required really, really hard reflection and introspection of what people meant. It also meant that most people didn't even consider what they meant. So when we would go about analyzing which theories of immersion were there, what concept were there, half the papers didn't even mention that. So it was really quite intuitive. And we set out in iLRN to create what we call the Immersive Learning Knowledge Tree, but we didn't know if it was a good idea. We didn't know if this was a need felt in the field. And so we set out to find out what was this need for more consistency and work together in the field. And we've now created a questionnaire, and we validated the questionnaire for that. And we also had, as part of the validation, early results. So we're going to present this. Dennis, I'm going to pass over to you to present the knowledge tree.
Absolutely. And I wanted to first say that the idea for the knowledge tree, the concept, was originally conceived by Mark Lee and Jonathon Richter. So I want to give credit where credit is due. They really, the idea for it came from them, and then it was developed as a team for a paper in 2020. But here's the knowledge tree, just really quickly. It's based on the idea that immersive learning is a field of study that emphasizes diversity of scholarship and subject areas. And that diversity, though, so one side of the coin is that there's a challenge for understanding the breadth as well as the depth, right? And that challenge led to our call to develop the iLRN knowledge tree. At the same time, the structure of the knowledge tree has not had its underlying assumptions validated by the larger community, which led us to this study, and that was to develop, validate, and disseminate across associations of the field a questionnaire for analyzing the assumptions, structure, and relevance of the knowledge tree proposal. So basically what we did, we came down to a few questions, and the questions were, is this initiative relevant? I know it might be a little novel. Not all scientists ask that question, but we didn't want to just be shooting in the dark. We wanted to know, is what this idea of the knowledge tree that we've come up with, is it even relevant? Is it resonating with the scientific community? Is its structure adequate? Or is it missing something? Because like a tree, we expect it very, very much to change, and to change radically, to be quite honest, as it grows.
Okay, so of course, 3 goals, 3 research questions. They are quite straightforward. So first, do our assumptions about the state of the field align with your assumptions? Second, what do you think about this structure? We proposed that tree based on ontologies and definitions. We based on conceptual data models, based on several stuff. Do people agree that that's the way to go? And finally, what else should be there? So quite straightforward. We did the validation first by doing expert review on the questionnaire. The Gütl questionnaire, we ran it through several experts, improved. And then we went, after it's got consolidated, we went and sent it out to get early outcomes. So in a total of 14 different experts reviewed it in this process. Dennis?
We then moved on to the consolidated questionnaire, where with the feedback we received from different participants focused on things like navigation, data privacy, grammar, interpretation of questions. And then we did a second round of expert review and feedback at that point. And then we sent the revised questionnaire back out to the original experts, and more feedback was requested.
Okay, so just one last aspect. This is not our questionnaire. It is a validated questionnaire open to the community. So while we are trying to run it throughout the entire community of immersive learning, we're glad and actually encourage, if you have particular communities of interest, if you want to use it to explore your community's priorities and views.
Because that's an excellent aspect there, Leonel, because we fully expect that as immersive learning as a field is so diverse, that different communities in iLRN and even outside of iLRN who do immersive learning research are going to have different views on things with the knowledge tree.
We now probably need to rush it a bit, so let's go, because people probably want the results. Let's go on. So you can find it, that's true, but you can find it there. So you can find all of this there. So I think you can skip the fact that there are structured the questions. We'll address in the paper, just go back a second. In this paper that is published, we are only addressing up to here, so just about the status of the field, because basically the number of pages ended. But we are including some earlier results here, and we are going to publish the full set of our results and trying to collect more answers. Okay, but I think they are quite indicative of what's going on. So about respondents, we were quite fortunate with the distribution of these early respondents, because we have nice distribution of ages. So we've got lots of seniority as expected for this kind of concerns, but also young researchers responding. And always a challenge in this field is gender balance, because it's a very, very male-dominated field. But we did manage already about a quarter non-male. And I think this can improve a lot. But at least it was not like a 90% male or something, which often occurs. Go on. We did have lots of countries responding in this early version of validation. So all those countries with all those various dimensions of respondents were there. So this is also gives us an idea that these early results probably are a good sample of the worldwide proposal. And we unexpectedly, even for most of these respondents are all the doctoral degree, we had quite a balanced level between people stating that they felt they were balanced between practice and research. So balance itself is half of that, and then the green and the yellows are people that said I'm mostly a practitioner or I'm mostly a researcher, even out. So good there. So we go over details. Let's go to the results so we can discuss. So that is
so here for the status of the field. That was one of our questions. Was what do you see as the status of the field? Well, 76% strongly agreed that the perspective of the field of immersive learning research status is muddled or fragmented. The current knowledge partially disjointed, specifically among different disciplines. And as I said earlier, it's really not a surprise. This is something that I think everybody kind of instinctively realizes from their own personal experiences, as well as through reading. You read one article to the next, and there's a completely different definition of immersion or learning even. And it's really difficult to compare or contrast or to use research or even bring research together in a coherent way. Also, 71% strongly agree that the field of immersive learning research is muddled or fragmented due to its interdisciplinary nature. So digging down there, the reason was the interdisciplinary nature. And here the field of immersive learning research is muddled or fragmented for a different reason. And here are some of the other reasons. The diversity of the phenomena itself, like the locale, the tools, lack of common institutional policies, lack of common methods, lack of exposure to research in other fields, lack of ontological structure, and lack of systematic analysis of a problem. So a wide variety of reasons there, and lots of lack involved there, but a lot of opportunity on the other side of the coin for developing those common methods, common fields, common policies, those common structures.
Okay, how many minutes do we have?
It's up there to 20 after.
6 minutes more.
Like that's within the 20, right?
No,
Yes.
or 15.
Okay, no, great. So we can rest, sure.
You want to do this one?
Let's go on. So another part. So one thing is about interdisciplinarity. So 70% agreed on that. Okay, what's the problem there? Is it difficulty to collaborate? So we asked that. We asked the reason was the status was about it is difficult to collaborate with others, and amazingly 61% agreed. Because in these conferences, I've hardly ever met someone said I don't like it, I have a hard time collaborating with other people. But that was not the response. The response was yes, we find it very hard to collaborate. It was a bit less pronounced, but still 50% that they struggle to compare and contrast efforts with others. And now this for us is a good indicator that it's not free, that the way to have referential concepts, perspectives, concepts is good, but it's starting at level. Can you go just back to the previous slide, Dennis, please,
Yeah,
for
sure.
a second? So 76% says the field is muddled. This is confusing, but only 51 say, and so I have trouble comparing with others. What happened to the other responses? The field is muddled, but it's not difficult to compare. So this is a bit surprising. We did ask for the reasons. They are mostly about ontological difference. Well, to be honest, they are mostly about we did not respond. Either did not respond or responded with an empty reason. So that's mostly by people feel something but don't really express it. Those that did express it, ontological and epistemological differences. This is basically for us very good because this is the rationale, the roots of knowledge tree. What are your concepts? What are your meanings? What are your methods? Well,
So see here, the next result was looking at the status of the theoretical background for the knowledge tree. And you can see here 30% felt that it had a very strong theoretical background. Immersive learning field did. 18% said neither. 18% said it was very weak. It was weak or very weak. And the question was, how strong do you find the theoretical background for the field of immersive learning research? And the reasons provided for such a status were things like epistemological differences, lack of theory development. I'm sorry, I'm reading this chart wrong. If you look at the way we broke it down, was the reasons that people gave when they said neither weak nor strong, and then the reasons that they gave when they said very strong or strong, and then the reasons for weak, very weak. So just to for time management situations here, let's take just the strong versus the weak. Strong said there was enough theory development and they had rigorous assessment. Weak said things like lack of theory development, multidisciplinary field, and then a bunch of other ones that were more like 1%, like dispersed, epistemological, ontological, research silos, things like that. And so it's kind of a little bit of a conundrum here. It's like we have some people saying strong, some people saying weak for the same reasons or opposite reasons. And so I think that's part of 2 minutes then. Yeah. So it's part of the diversity of the field here. There are some areas where there is enough theory development. There are others, fractured aspects of it, that where there is not. And so we have these differences.
Okay, we went up to definition of immersion. So we have now been pushing forward several reviews, like by Nielsen and Paul and Hydro and all, about that immersion being three different dimensions in concept, not just being present, but being psychologically engaged in the narrative, psychologically engaged with your agency, with your initiative. That is far, well, that's the literature. That's far from the common perspective. So we wanted to know what people thought about definitions of immersion. Not surprisingly, only 36% said it was strong, but look at the dispersion. So it's almost like a normal curve. So it's like, yeah, it's not too serious, it could be better. And the reason was, if you look at it, these are the reasons. Of course, again, 46% didn't say why. But if we look at, for instance, what the people that said multiple meanings, we have different meanings, we were mostly on the gray area, which means people that said there's mixed consensus. They are aware of different meanings. But what was happening to strong consensus? The strong consensus basically said this: only sensorial meaning is valid. Look, it's 2% of reasons, but remember, these 2% are 8% here. And if you go to some consensus, you start to say stuff like, oh, it's just because the technology changes. So it's a very strong sense. And I think this links to what we were seeing earlier. People say it's muddled, but it's not just because, I think we could stop there and go to discussion because the rest is more trivial. I don't think it's just because they say, oh, it's so confusing. I think there are two main fields here. People that realize this is confusing, their dispersion, and people say this should be like I like it to be. Why are people doing it any other way? Dennis,
So
finish.
with our discussion here, looking at research question 1, we did have some diversity among our participants. Did it actually match the actual field or not? No. It was close. There were some aspects close, but trying to think about it in terms of parallel universes, the theory of parallel universes, there's a lot of parallel universes out there in immersive learning, right? There's lots of different fields. There's lots of different aspects of it, applications. So we did not match all the fields. Field of immersive learning research is muddled and fragmented. We know that in itself came out really clearly. Also, very interestingly enough, interdisciplinary collaboration is desired by many, but difficult to accomplish. And then the strength of theoretical background is mixed. And once again, in some of the parallel universes, it is. In others, it is not.
We need to recognize our time is up. So I'd say that we would like to, I synthesize this by saying we are publishing, as I said, the following questions and the early results. We are disseminating more, and we would encourage you to try to respond, because we will be sending out again. We will check out proceedings and your emails and proceedings and sending out the questionnaire. We would really love if you did not dismiss it, because I know we received hundreds of questionnaire requests. This is really not just another build. We are really trying to make our entire field become stronger. So if you could please collaborate. We will also have in this conference this week more events about the knowledge tree, including showing you what we've done so far